"Put that badge down immediately, officer." The voice carries the unmistakable weight of authority through the afternoon heat. Officer Ryan Morris freezes mid-motion, water bottle still dripping in his hand as he stares at the tall, imposing figure approaching through the crowd. The liquid cascades down pregnant Elena Martinez's hair onto her swollen belly as she sits helplessly on the scorching pavement. Have you ever witnessed karma arrive with perfect timing? This is that story. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. 2 hours earlier, Elena carefully navigates her Toyota Camry through Pinewood's busy streets. The Arizona sun beats mercilessly as she parks outside Valley Medical Center, her hands instinctively cradling her 8-month pregnant belly. She's still getting used to this small town after relocating from Phoenix when her husband Michael accepted a new position. The transition hasn't been easy. Some neighbors welcome them warmly, while others watch the young Hispanic couple with undisguised suspicion. Elena checks her phone calendar before stepping out into the heat. 3:30 p.m. Dr. Garcia prenatal appointment, then grocery shopping for dinner. Her flowing teal maternity dress offers minimal relief from the oppressive temperature as she walks slowly toward the medical building. The extra weight of her pregnancy makes each step deliberate, measured. Everything looks perfect, Dr. Garcia smiles, handing Elena her updated prenatal vitamin prescription. Your blood pressure is normal, and this little one has a strong, healthy heartbeat. You're doing everything right, Mama. Relief washes over Elena. This pregnancy hasn't been without complications, the early spotting, the constant worry, the genetic testing they waited on anxiously. But now, entering her final trimester, things are finally progressing smoothly. She rubs her belly gently, feeling a reassuring kick in response. Just make sure you're staying hydrated in this heat, Dr. Garcia adds, concern evident in her voice. This summer's breaking records, and dehydration can trigger contractions. I want to see you back in 2 weeks, but call immediately if you notice any changes. Elena nods, tucking the prescription into her purse. I promise. Michael's been practically following me around with water bottles. She laughs softly, though her husband's protectiveness has been a comfort through this journey. 20 minutes later, Elena pulls into Riverside Market's parking lot. The store occupies the busiest intersection in Pinewood, surrounded by small businesses and constant foot traffic. Security cameras monitor every corner, capturing the steady stream of customers seeking refuge from the afternoon heat. Inside, the blessed air conditioning washes over her overheated skin. She moves methodically through familiar aisles, prenatal vitamins from the pharmacy counter, fresh vegetables from Michael's favorite stir-fry, the whole grain bread he prefers. Other shoppers nod politely, though she notices lingering glances at her out-of-state license displayed in her wallet. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Meanwhile, Officer Ryan Morris cruises through downtown in his patrol car. Radio chatter provides background noise as he adjusts his mirrored sunglasses, scanning streets he knows by heart. Morris has patrolled Pinewood for 14 years, long enough to know every shortcut, every trouble spot, every face that belongs and doesn't belong. His thick forearms rest confidently on the steering wheel as he surveys what he considers his territory. The new sheriff has been requesting mandatory meetings with all officers for weeks now. Morris has successfully avoided these sessions, citing scheduling conflicts and patrol priorities. He deliberately works day shifts, knowing Sheriff Martinez handles administrative duties during evening hours. Morris parks outside Betty's diner and steps into the blistering heat. His dark uniform absorbs the sun's intensity as he checks his watch, 2:45 p.m. 3 more hours before his shift ends and he can retreat to his air-conditioned truck with a cold beer, a ritual that helps wash away the frustrations of policing a changing town. Officer Rebecca Chen waves from across the street. Fresh from the academy, she's eager to prove herself worthy of the badge. Chen attended yesterday's department meeting where Sheriff Martinez introduced new community policing initiatives focused on building trust within Pinewood's growing Hispanic community. She mentioned Morris's absence during the briefing, earning his icy glare later in the locker room. Progressive nonsense from outsiders who don't understand real police work, Morris had muttered while slamming his locker shut. Chen remained silent, but her uncomfortable expression spoke volumes about the department's growing divide. Pinewood itself mirrors this tension. The town council recently voted by a narrow margin to implement police reform measures after body camera footage showed excessive force during a routine traffic stop 3 months ago. Local news station KPWD has been investigating department practices, interviewing residents about their experiences with law enforcement. Some citizens demand accountability and transparent oversight. Others defend their police officers as dedicated professionals unfairly targeted by political correctness. Town hall meetings that once focused on road repairs and school funding now erupt into heated debates that reflect America's broader divisions. Morris climbs back into his patrol car and resumes his route. The radio remains quiet as he drives past landmarks that tell Pinewood's complicated story: the historic courthouse where Confederate and American flags fly side by side, the new Salvadoran restaurant that opened despite vocal community opposition, the recently integrated community pool that still draws occasional protesters. His phone buzzes with another meeting request from Sheriff Martinez's office. Morris deletes it without reading the details and continues driving. He's heard enough about the new sheriff from fellow officers, young, educated, with progressive ideas about community engagement that contradict everything Morris learned from his father and grandfather, both retired cops themselves. Real police work isn't about holding hands and singing Kumbaya, his father always said. It's about maintaining order and showing strength. People respect what they fear. These words echo in Morris's mind as he spots a Toyota Camry with out-of-state plates pulling out of Riverside Market. Something about the driver catches his attention, or perhaps he simply needs to release the frustration building inside him like pressure in a sealed container. Elena emerges from Riverside Market carrying 2 paper bags filled with fresh produce and household necessities. The afternoon heat hits her immediately, making her slightly dizzy. She takes slow, measured steps toward her car, feeling the baby shift restlessly. The weight of her pregnancy combined with the groceries makes each step challenging. She loads the bags into the back seat and starts the engine, grateful for the cold air flowing from the vents. As she pulls onto Main Street, she adjusts the air conditioning to maximum and checks her mirrors. That's when she notices the patrol car following closely behind her. "Just stay calm," she whispers to herself. "You haven't done anything wrong." 2 traffic lights later, Officer Morris activates his overhead flashers. Red and blue lights pulse in Elena's rearview mirror as the siren cuts through the afternoon stillness. Her heart races as she immediately signals and pulls back into Riverside Market's parking lot. Following the advice Michael gave her about police interactions, she turns off the engine, places both hands visibly on the steering wheel, and takes deep breaths to calm herself. The baby kicks forcefully against her ribs, responding to the surge of stress hormones flooding her system. Elena whispers soothing words to her unborn child while watching Officer Morris approach in her side mirror. His heavy boots crunch on loose gravel as he takes deliberate, unhurried steps toward her window. Mirrored sunglasses reflect Elena's anxious face as she rolls down her window. Cool air conditioning escapes into the oppressive heat as Morris looms over her. "License and registration," he commands without introduction, his voice carrying the arrogance of unchecked authority. "Step out of the vehicle." Elena reaches carefully for her purse, moving slowly to avoid any sudden gestures that might be misinterpreted. "Officer, may I ask why you pulled me over?" "I believe I was following all traffic laws." "Don't question me. Just follow orders," Morris snaps, his jaw tightening as he watches her retrieve her wallet. "Step out now." "Sir, I'm 8 months pregnant," Elena explains, gesturing to her belly. "Could I please remain seated? I have all my documentation right here." Despite maintaining a respectful tone, Morris interprets her reasonable request as defiance. He calls for backup though no emergency exists. "Control, this is Unit 47 requesting additional support at Riverside Market. Traffic stop with an uncooperative subject." Curious shoppers begin gathering near the store entrance. Some pull out phones to record while others whisper among themselves. The growing audience only intensifies Morris's determination to assert his authority. "Ma'am, I'm not asking again. Exit the vehicle immediately or you'll be arrested for obstruction." His hand moves toward his handcuffs as Elena reluctantly complies, using the car door for support as she struggles to stand. The scorching pavement radiates heat through her sandals while the baby's weight throws off her balance. She hands over her license and registration with trembling fingers. Morris examines her documents with exaggerated scrutiny. "Arizona driver's license, but you've got out-of-state plates. That's a violation right there." "We just moved here 6 weeks ago, sir," Elena explains. "My husband's job transferred him from Phoenix. We're still updating our registration." "Sure you are," Morris replies, his tone dripping with skepticism. "Martinez. Not from around here originally, are you?" The question carries unmistakable implications, but Elena maintains her composure. "I was born in Tucson, officer. I've lived in Arizona my entire life." Officer Chen arrives in her patrol car, emergency lights flashing but siren silent. She approaches cautiously, immediately noticing Elena's advanced pregnancy and obvious discomfort in the oppressive heat. "What's the situation, Morris?" Chen asks, observing Elena's flushed face with concern. "Routine traffic stop. Subject ran the stop sign back at Maple and 3rd. The lie comes effortlessly, though security cameras at that intersection will later prove Elena made a complete stop." "Officer, I absolutely stopped at that intersection," Elena protests. "I'm very careful, especially now that I'm pregnant." "Are you calling me a liar?" Morris steps closer, using his imposing frame to intimidate. "Because that sounds like obstruction to me." The crowd continues growing. Several people hold phones high, recording every moment of the interaction. A local business owner emerges from his shop, shaking his head at the obvious harassment unfolding in broad daylight. "Sir, I would never call you a liar," Elena responds, maintaining remarkable composure despite feeling increasingly vulnerable in the intense heat. "I'm simply stating what happened." Morris notices the recording phones and realizes his fabricated traffic violation won't withstand scrutiny. Rather than backing down, he decides to escalate. "I'm detecting the odor of marijuana coming from your vehicle. That gives me probable cause to search." "That's impossible, officer," Elena replies, genuine confusion in her voice. "I don't use any substances, especially while pregnant." "You're welcome to have me tested." "Don't tell me what I can and cannot smell," Morris barks, moving toward her car. "Chen, watch the subject while I conduct a search." Officer Chen positions herself near Elena while avoiding direct eye contact. Her discomfort is evident, but department culture has taught her that protecting fellow officers takes precedence over protecting citizens, even visibly pregnant women swaying from heat exposure. Morris begins aggressively searching Elena's Toyota, pulling items from the glove compartment and center console. He dumps her purse contents onto the hood, scattering prenatal vitamins, medical appointment cards, and family photos across the hot metal surface. "Please be careful with those," Elena pleads. "Some of those photos are irreplaceable." "Should have thought about that before breaking the law." Morris continues his invasive search, clearly hoping to find something, anything, to justify his actions. Finding nothing incriminating, his frustration grows visibly. The afternoon sun beats down mercilessly as Elena begins showing signs of heat exhaustion, slight swaying, perspiration beading on her forehead despite her efforts to remain composed. "Officer, could I please sit down or move to some shade? This heat is making me dizzy." "You stand right there until I'm finished," Morris responds, his callousness shocking even some of his usual supporters in the growing crowd. An elderly woman calls out, "Let her sit down, for heaven's sake. Can't you see she's pregnant?" Several others murmur agreement, creating mounting social pressure that Morris immediately resents. "Does anyone else want to interfere with a police investigation?" he challenges, scanning the crowd. "I've got plenty of handcuffs." His threat temporarily silences the onlookers, but phones continue recording. Social media posts are already appearing with hashtags like #PregnantWomanAbused and #PinewoodPolice. Officer Chen shifts nervously, her academy training about de-escalation and community relations battling with her understanding that speaking against a senior officer could effectively end her career before it begins. She watches Elena struggle in the heat and feels her conscience demanding action. "Morris, maybe we should," Chen begins tentatively. "Maybe you should focus on doing your job instead of second-guessing mine," Morris snaps without looking up from his fruitless search. Elena clutches her car door for support as another wave of dizziness washes over her. The combination of pregnancy, stress, and oppressive heat creates a dangerous situation that requires immediate intervention. "Please, officer," genuine fear enters her voice. "Something's wrong. The baby hasn't moved in several minutes." Morris finally looks up from his search, empty-handed and increasingly frustrated. He's found no contraband, no evidence of wrongdoing, nothing to justify his aggressive treatment of a pregnant woman. The growing crowd and recording phones have trapped him in a situation entirely of his own making. Rather than show mercy or professional judgment, Morris makes the decision that will define the rest of his career and life. Slamming Elena's car door shut with unnecessary force, he retrieves his water bottle from his patrol car. For a moment, the crowd believes he's finally showing basic human decency by offering hydration to the visibly struggling pregnant woman. "You want water?" Morris asks, his tone carrying a dangerous edge. "Yes, please," Elena responds with visible relief, reaching out her hand. Instead of handing her the bottle, Morris unscrews the cap and positions himself directly above her. "Maybe this will cool down your attitude," he says coldly, then deliberately pours the water over Elena's head and shoulders. The liquid streams down her face and onto her swollen belly while Morris watches with cruel satisfaction. The empty bottle clatters to the pavement as gasps of horror ripple through the stunned crowd. "Oh my God," a woman screams. "Someone call his supervisor," another voice shouts. "You can't do that to a pregnant woman." Phones capture the assault from every angle as social media notifications begin pinging across platforms. Within minutes, #WaterAssault starts trending locally as the video spreads like wildfire. Elena sits on the burning concrete, one hand protectively cradling her belly while the other slowly wipes water from her eyes. Despite the public humiliation, she maintains eye contact with Morris, refusing to give him the satisfaction of breaking her spirit. Her wet dress clings uncomfortably to her skin while water drips steadily from her hair onto the pavement, forming small dark spots that evaporate almost immediately in the intense heat. "Feel better now?" Morris sneers, towering over his victim. Officer Chen stares in horror at her colleague's behavior. Nothing in her training prepared her for witnessing such blatant abuse of authority. She knows she should intervene, but the consequences of opposing a senior officer paralyze her with indecision. The crowd's anger reaches a boiling point as people begin shouting demands for justice. "Arrest him," someone yells. "He's supposed to protect people, not torture them." A group of teenagers begins chanting, "Shame! Shame! Shame," while recording everything on their phones. Morris spins toward the witnesses with renewed aggression. "Anyone else want to obstruct my investigation? I've got plenty of room in my patrol car." His threats temporarily quiet the crowd, but phones continue recording every moment. Local news stations are already monitoring social media feeds, and reporters are en route to the scene. Elena struggles to stand, using her car for support as water continues dripping from her hair. The combination of heat, stress, and public humiliation has left her visibly shaken. She places both hands on her belly, feeling for movement with growing concern. "The baby stopped kicking," she whispers, maternal panic overriding everything else as she realizes her child might be in distress. Morris prepares handcuffs while positioning himself behind Elena. "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and resisting arrest." "I haven't resisted anything," Elena responds weakly, her voice lacking its earlier strength as exhaustion and medical concerns take priority. "You're resisting right now by arguing with me," Morris's circular logic reveals his complete abandonment of proper police procedure. A local reporter arrives, immediately beginning to interview witnesses while her cameraman captures the confrontation. The presence of professional media elevates the incident's significance beyond social media posts. Chen finally finds her voice as she watches Morris prepare to arrest a pregnant woman for non-existent crimes. "Morris, this has gone far enough. She needs medical attention." "Mind your own business, rookie, unless you want to find a new career," Morris snaps, his harsh response revealing the toxic culture that enables such behavior. Elena's condition deteriorates visibly as heat exhaustion symptoms intensify. She sways slightly while gripping the car door, her face pale despite the oppressive temperature. "I need to call my emergency contact," she manages between labored breaths. "Please let me call my husband." Morris laughs mockingly. "Calling Daddy to come save you? This should be interesting." He has no idea that the phone number Elena provides will connect directly to the sheriff's office, where her husband Michael Martinez is reviewing budget reports in his air-conditioned office. The dispatcher dials Elena's emergency contact while Morris continues his harassment. The phone rings twice, then connects to a calm, professional voice that immediately silences the crowd. "Sheriff's office. Sheriff Martinez speaking." Morris freezes mid-sentence as the familiar name registers. The dispatcher explains the situation while confusion spreads across Morris's face. "Put her through immediately," Sheriff Martinez commands, his authoritative tone carrying absolute authority. Elena takes the radio with trembling hands. "Michael, thank God. I'm at Riverside Market and I need you here right now." "The baby, something might be wrong." Morris's face drains of all color as the pieces finally connect. "Martinez. Sheriff Martinez. The pregnant Hispanic woman he's been harassing is married to his boss, the same man whose meetings he's been deliberately avoiding for weeks. I'm on my way, Elena. Stay calm. Everything will be okay." Michael's voice carries both tenderness for his wife and barely controlled fury at the situation. The radio goes silent as Morris staggers backward against his patrol car. His hands shake uncontrollably while sweat pours down his face despite the shade from his vehicle. 14 years of untouchable authority crumble in an instant. "Oh shit," Officer Chen whispers as she recognizes the full magnitude of the situation. She immediately steps away from Morris, creating physical distance from the career-ending disaster unfolding before her. The crowd senses something momentous happening. Whispered conversations spread through the gathered witnesses as those who recognize the sheriff's name explain to others. Cell phone cameras capture Morris's dawning horror in high definition. "Did he just torture the sheriff's wife?" someone asks in disbelief. "He's done. His career is over," another voice responds with certainty. 3 minutes later, an unmarked black SUV with government plates arrives at the scene. The vehicle moves with quiet authority through the crowd as people instinctively step aside. Every longtime Pinewood resident recognizes the sheriff's vehicle. Sheriff Michael Martinez emerges from the driver's seat wearing his full dress uniform. At 6'2", with broad shoulders and commanding presence, he radiates the kind of natural authority that can't be manufactured or imitated. His badge gleams in the afternoon sunlight as he surveys the scene with controlled fury. Morris initially doesn't recognize the man approaching through the crowd. The sheriff looks younger than expected, more athletic, more imposing. This isn't the bureaucratic administrator Morris imagined while avoiding departmental meetings. "Who called the county?" Morris protests weakly, still not comprehending who stands before him. "This is city jurisdiction." Michael ignores Morris completely and walks directly to his wife. His professional mask slips momentarily as tender concern replaces official authority. "Elena, are you hurt? How's the baby?" He gently places his hand on her belly. "I think we're okay now," she responds while leaning against her husband's protective embrace. But something felt wrong earlier. The baby wasn't moving. The crowd watches in fascination as the tall uniformed man helps his pregnant wife to her feet with gentle care. His wedding ring catches the sunlight as he steadies her swaying form. Morris squints at the approaching figure, trying to process the uniform details. The shirt displays sergeant stripes, but something seems wrong. Too many stripes. Too much brass. His brain struggles to decode the rank insignia. Wait, that's not. Morris's voice trails off as he finally reads the embroidered nameplate, Martinez, Sheriff. The realization hits like a physical blow. This Hispanic man in the impressive uniform isn't county backup or state police. This is Michael Martinez, the new sheriff of Pinewood County, the boss Morris has been avoiding for weeks, the husband of the pregnant woman he just assaulted with water in front of dozens of witnesses. Oh God. No. 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 Morris's legs nearly give out as he grabs his patrol car for support. Sweat pours down his face while his hands shake uncontrollably. Sheriff Martinez helps Elena sit in the shade of a nearby storefront before turning his attention to the officers. His movement is deliberate, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its calm professionalism. "Officer Morris," Michael says quietly. His voice carries no emotion, which makes it infinitely more intimidating than shouting would be. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir." You're the sheriff," Morris stammers, his arrogance evaporated. I didn't recognize, we've never been formally introduced." "Different shifts." "I was going to attend the meeting next week, so, you've been avoiding department meetings for weeks, haven't you?" Michael's question lands with surgical precision. Morris realizes his pattern of avoidance has been noticed and documented. His attempts to circumvent the new sheriff's authority have been meticulously recorded. "Sir, I can explain everything. This is all a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job." "And your job is to pour water on pregnant women?" Michael's voice rises slightly for the first time. The crowd murmurs appreciatively as their sheriff demonstrates exactly the kind of leadership they hoped for when he was appointed. Cell phone cameras capture every moment of Morris's professional execution. Officer Chen steps forward with her hands raised slightly. "Sheriff, I tried to stop him. I told him this was wrong, but he wouldn't listen." Michael studies the junior officer carefully. "We'll discuss your role later, Officer Chen. Right now, my concern is my wife's medical condition and this officer's complete violation of his oath." Morris makes one final desperate plea. "Sheriff, please. I've got 14 years on the force, my pension, my family. Please don't destroy everything over a misunderstanding." Michael looks at his pregnant wife sitting exhausted in the shade, then back at the pathetic officer begging for mercy he showed none to others. "Officer Morris, you're suspended immediately pending investigation." Sheriff Martinez extends his hand toward Morris with calm authority. "Your badge and service weapon. Now." Morris's trembling fingers fumble with his badge holder as the weight of his destruction settles in. 14 years of police authority dissolve in seconds as he reluctantly removes the star-shaped symbol from his chest. The metal feels impossibly heavy in his sweating palm. "Sir, please reconsider. I've got 2 kids in college and a mortgage. This job is everything to me. You should have considered that before you assaulted my pregnant wife in public." Michael responds without sympathy as he accepts the badge and drops it into an evidence bag. The service weapon comes next, removed from its holster with shaking hands. Morris's identity as a law enforcement officer vanishes completely as he surrenders the tools of his former authority. The crowd watches silently as power transfers from oppressor to protector. Officer Chen quickly removes her own badge and weapon before being ordered to do so. "Sheriff, I want to cooperate fully with any investigation. I should have stopped this sooner." "Yes, you should have." Michael's assessment is brutally honest, but not without compassion for the junior officer's impossible position. "You're also suspended pending review of your actions." Paramedics arrive at the scene after being called by concerned witnesses. They immediately focus on Elena's condition, checking her blood pressure and monitoring the baby's heartbeat with portable equipment. "Ma'am, your blood pressure is elevated but not dangerous. The baby's heartbeat is strong and regular," the paramedic reports, bringing visible relief to both Elena and Michael. Morris makes one final attempt at damage control. Mrs. Martinez, I sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding. I was just following protocol for traffic stops. Elena looks at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. There was no misunderstanding, Officer Morris. You deliberately humiliated me because of my ethnicity. You poured water on a pregnant woman in 100-degree heat. Her calm dignity in the face of his pathetic apology demonstrates the vast character difference between victim and perpetrator. Michael reads Morris's constitutional rights in full view of the assembled witnesses. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The irony of a Hispanic sheriff reading rights to a white officer who just committed civil rights violations isn't lost on anyone present. Local news reporter Jessica Reyes arrives with her camera crew just as Morris is being formally processed. Her live broadcast reaches thousands of viewers immediately as the story begins spreading beyond social media. This is Jessica Reyes reporting live from Pinewood, where we're witnessing the aftermath of a shocking incident involving police misconduct. A pregnant woman was allegedly assaulted by Officer Ryan Morris before her husband, Sheriff Michael Martinez, arrived at the scene. Multiple witnesses eagerly approached the news crew to provide their accounts of Morris's behavior. Their testimonies create a damning narrative of abuse that will be impossible to refute or minimize. I've never seen anything so disgusting, reports one elderly witness. That poor pregnant woman just sitting there while he poured water on her head like she was nothing. Michael coordinates with the arriving investigators while maintaining protective oversight of his wife. His professional demeanor impresses everyone present as he balances personal concern with official duties. I want a complete investigation by Internal Affairs and the State Bureau. Every witness interviewed, every video analyzed, every policy violation documented. His instructions leave no room for departmental cover-up or minimization. Morris sits in the back of a patrol car as his former colleagues process the scene around him. The vehicle's air conditioning provides relief from the heat, but nothing can cool the burning shame of his public destruction. Chen provides a detailed statement to investigators, clearly establishing her attempts to intervene and Morris's refusal to listen. Her cooperation may save her career while ensuring Morris's termination. Social media explodes with outrage as videos of the incident spread across multiple platforms. #WaterTorture and #Pinewood Police trend nationally as viewers demand justice and accountability. The mayor's office receives hundreds of phone calls within the first hour as public pressure builds for swift action. City council members distance themselves from Morris while praising Sheriff Martinez's leadership. This incident does not represent the values of our community, Mayor Robert Collins announces in an emergency press conference. We will cooperate fully with all investigations and take appropriate action. Michael helps Elena into his SUV for the trip to the hospital for precautionary examination. Her dignity throughout the ordeal has impressed everyone present and will be remembered long after Morris's disgrace is forgotten. Are you ready to go home, Mrs. Sheriff? Michael asks with gentle humor as he starts the engine. I'm ready for justice, Elena responds with quiet determination. Within 48 hours, FBI Special Agent Gabriela Rodriguez arrives in Pinewood carrying a briefcase full of federal civil rights violation paperwork. Her dark suit and no-nonsense demeanor signal the seriousness of the investigation as she establishes a temporary field office in the courthouse. This isn't just about one incident, Agent Rodriguez explains to Sheriff Martinez during their first meeting. We're examining patterns of behavior that suggest systemic civil rights violations. The FBI's digital forensics team analyzes dozens of cell phone videos from multiple angles, creating a comprehensive timeline of Morris's abuse. High-definition footage captures every detail of the water assault, his prejudiced language, and his complete disregard for Elena's medical condition. Meanwhile, Morris's 14-year personnel file reveals a disturbing pattern of complaints that were minimized or ignored by previous leadership. Citizens had filed 23 formal complaints alleging excessive force, racial profiling, and verbal abuse. None resulted in serious disciplinary action. He's been getting away with this behavior for years, Agent Rodriguez tells the assembled media during her first press conference. Federal civil rights laws exist specifically to address this type of systematic abuse of authority. The story explodes across national media as major networks feature the incident prominently. The visual of a pregnant Hispanic woman being doused with water by a white police officer becomes an instantly recognizable symbol of police misconduct. Civil rights attorney Julian Washington takes Elena's case pro bono after watching the viral video. His Phoenix-based firm specializes in police misconduct cases and has secured millions in settlements for victims of abuse. What happened to Mrs. Martinez represents everything wrong with policing in America, Attorney Washington announces at his press conference. We will pursue both criminal charges and civil remedies to ensure this never happens again. The federal grand jury convenes within 30 days, hearing testimony from dozens of witnesses who observed Morris's behavior. The proceedings move swiftly as prosecutors present overwhelming evidence of civil rights violations. Morris's defense attorney attempts to portray the incident as a misunderstanding, claiming his client was following standard police procedures. The argument collapses immediately when prosecutors play the water-pouring video in open court. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, federal prosecutor Marcus Johnson states during opening arguments, you will see a 14-year police veteran deliberately assault a pregnant woman for the crime of driving while Hispanic. The trial becomes a media sensation as coverage provides gavel-to-gavel coverage. Expert witnesses testify about the medical dangers of forcing pregnant women to stand in extreme heat without water or shade. Dr. Garcia, Elena's obstetrician, takes the witness stand to explain the serious risks Morris's actions pose to both mother and child. Heat exhaustion during pregnancy can cause premature labor, placental abruption, and fetal distress. This officer's behavior was medically reckless and could have resulted in tragedy. The prosecution methodically presents video evidence from 17 different camera angles, creating an undeniable record of Morris's abuse. Each clip shows different aspects of his cruelty, from the illegal search to the water assault. Witness after witness testifies about Morris's pattern of racist behavior toward Hispanic citizens. Former victims emerge from years of silence to share their experiences with the same officer who assaulted Elena. He pulled me over 9 times in 3 years for nothing, testifies Carlos Ramirez, a local business owner. Always the same harassment, always the same racial slurs. I stopped driving through certain parts of town just to avoid him. Morris's defense strategy centers on claiming he feared for his safety during a routine traffic stop. The argument becomes laughable when prosecutors demonstrate that Elena was 8 months pregnant, unarmed, and completely compliant throughout the encounter. Officer Chen testifies for the prosecution, describing Morris's pattern of misconduct and the department culture that protected him. Her testimony proves devastating as she details multiple incidents she witnessed but was afraid to report. I knew what he was doing was wrong, Chen admits under oath. But I was told repeatedly that officers who report colleagues don't get backup when they need it. The message was clear: stay silent or find another job. The jury deliberates for only 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all federal charges: civil rights violations, assault under color of authority, and conspiracy to deprive constitutional rights. Judge Raymond Torres delivers a harsh sentence during the penalty phase. Your actions represent everything law enforcement should never be. You used your badge as a weapon against an innocent pregnant woman. Morris receives 4 years in federal prison plus 3 years supervised release. The sentence sends shockwaves through police departments nationwide as officers realize the federal government will prosecute civil rights violations aggressively. This sentence demonstrates that no one is above the law, U.S. Attorney General James Wilson announces from Washington. Federal civil rights protections exist to prevent exactly this type of abuse. The civil lawsuit settles for $3.2 million, with the city accepting full responsibility for Morris's actions. The settlement agreement includes mandatory reforms to prevent similar incidents in the future. Police Chief Thomas Anderson resigns under pressure after the FBI investigation reveals his systematic failure to address Morris's pattern of misconduct. His departure signals a complete leadership overhaul within the department. Officer Chen receives a 6-month suspension but keeps her job after cooperating fully with investigators. She enrolls in additional training on civil rights and becomes an advocate for police accountability within the department. The Pinewood Police Department implements sweeping reforms as part of the federal settlement agreement. Body cameras become mandatory for all officers, citizen oversight boards gain real authority, and bias training becomes required annually. Sheriff Martinez uses the incident as a catalyst for broader criminal justice reform throughout the county. His leadership during the crisis establishes him as a respected voice for ethical law enforcement. This tragedy shows what happens when bad officers are protected instead of held accountable, Michael tells a gathering of police chiefs from across Arizona. We must choose between protecting bad cops or protecting the communities we serve. The incident becomes a case study in police academies nationwide as instructors use the video to demonstrate how not to conduct traffic stops. Morris's name becomes synonymous with police misconduct in law enforcement training materials. Congressional hearings on police reform cite the Pinewood incident as evidence for stronger federal oversight of local police departments. Lawmakers from both parties condemn Morris's actions while praising Sheriff Martinez's leadership. The contrast between these two officers couldn't be clearer, Congresswoman Sophia Williams states during committee hearings. One represents everything wrong with policing. The other represents everything right. The viral video reaches over 150 million views across all platforms, making it one of the most watched police misconduct recordings in history. The hashtag Justice for Elena becomes a rallying cry for civil rights activists nationwide. Morris begins serving his federal sentence at a minimum security facility in Colorado. His wife files for divorce within months, and his children distance themselves from his legacy. The case establishes important legal precedent for prosecuting police officers who commit civil rights violations. For weeks after Morris's sentencing, Elena gives birth to a healthy baby boy named David Michael Martinez. The delivery goes smoothly despite the trauma she endured during pregnancy, and both mother and child thrive under excellent medical care. Michael holds his newborn son in the hospital room while news cameras capture the tender moment. He represents everything we're fighting for, he tells reporters. A future where all children can grow up safe and treated with dignity. The baby's birth becomes a powerful symbol of resilience overcoming hatred. Social media fills with congratulatory messages as millions who followed Elena's story celebrate David's arrival. Elena transforms her traumatic experience into a force for positive change. She joins the American Civil Liberties Union as a volunteer advocate, sharing her story at conferences and community meetings across the Southwest. What happened to me wasn't just about one bad officer, Elena explains to a packed auditorium at Arizona State University. It was about a system that protected him for 14 years while he terrorized innocent people. Her speaking engagements draw standing ovations as audiences connect with her dignity and determination. University students, community leaders, and even police officers acknowledge her courage in fighting for justice. Sheriff Martinez implements revolutionary community policing programs that become models for departments nationwide. Crime rates drop significantly while citizen complaints against officers virtually disappear under his leadership. Trust isn't given, it's earned, Michael explains to visiting police chiefs. Every interaction between officers and citizens is an opportunity to build or destroy that trust. The Pinewood Police Department attracts national attention for its progressive approach to law enforcement under Sheriff Martinez's leadership. Young officers compete for positions in his department, eager to work under ethical leadership that prioritizes community service over aggressive enforcement. Morris serves his federal sentence without possibility of early release. Prison records show he participates reluctantly in mandatory sensitivity training but shows little genuine remorse for his actions. His family struggles financially after losing his pension and benefits. The foreclosure of their home and social ostracism serve as additional consequences for his choices. Former colleagues avoid association with his toxic legacy. The contrast between Morris's downfall and the Martinez family's success illustrates the long-term consequences of choosing hatred over humanity. His name becomes a cautionary tale while theirs represents hope and positive change. Pinewood transforms from a town divided by racial tension into a national model for community healing. New businesses open downtown, attracted by the progressive leadership and positive national attention. The annual Hope Festival celebrates unity and justice while raising funds for civil rights organizations. Thousands of visitors come to Pinewood each year to see where courage triumphed over cruelty. Local schools integrate Elena's story into their civics curriculum, teaching students about constitutional rights and the importance of standing up against injustice. Her example inspires a new generation of activists and community leaders. The viral video continues serving as evidence in federal civil rights training programs. Law enforcement agencies worldwide study the incident to understand how bias and abuse of authority destroy police legitimacy. Congressional legislation citing the Pinewood case strengthens federal oversight of local police departments. Baby David grows into a healthy, happy toddler surrounded by a community that fought for his mother's dignity. His first steps are taken in a town transformed by his parents' courage and determination. Michael and Elena write a book about their experience titled When Water Breaks, A Family's Fight Against Police Brutality. Proceeds fund scholarships for students pursuing careers in civil rights law. The book becomes a bestseller, reaching audiences far beyond those who saw the original video. Readers around the world find inspiration in their story of perseverance and ultimate triumph over injustice. 3 years later, Morris remains in federal prison while the Martinez family thrives. Their divergent paths demonstrate how individual choices create vastly different destinies. Today, Pinewood stands as proof that real change is possible when communities demand accountability from those sworn to protect them. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but persistent effort created lasting progress. What gets measured, gets improved, Sheriff Martinez explains to a new class of police academy recruits. Under my leadership, officers aren't evaluated by arrest numbers or traffic citations. We measure success by community engagement, problem solving, and building trust. This revolutionary approach initially met resistance from veteran officers accustomed to traditional metrics. Some resigned rather than adapt to the new standards. Others discovered unexpected satisfaction in meaningful community connections that prevented crime instead of just responding to it. Law enforcement is ultimately about creating safer communities, not winning power struggles on the street, Michael continues. Every person you interact with is someone's spouse, someone's parent, someone's child. Treat them accordingly. The recruits listen attentively, knowing they're part of a department that's becoming the gold standard for ethical policing. Applications for positions in Pinewood have increased tenfold since the reforms began, allowing Michael to select only the most qualified candidates with the right temperament for modern community policing. At home, baby David begins forming his first words. Mama and Dada echo through the Martinez household, bringing joy that stands in stark contrast to the traumatic circumstances of his prenatal experience. Elena watches her son play in their backyard garden, marveling at his resilience and energy. Sometimes I wonder if he remembers, she tells her husband as they observe their son chasing butterflies. If some part of him recalls those moments of fear before he was born. If he does, Michael replies, he'll also remember how brave his mother was. How she stood up for what's right, even when it was hard. Elena has become a powerful voice for police reform, particularly concerning treatment of pregnant women in custody. Her testimony before state legislative committees has resulted in the Elena Martinez Law, which creates special protections and medical requirements for pregnant detainees. No woman should fear for her child's safety during an interaction with law enforcement, she tells lawmakers during a particularly moving session. The badge should represent protection, not persecution. Her words carry special weight coming from the wife of a sheriff. She isn't speaking against law enforcement, she's married to it. She's advocating for the profession's highest ideals while condemning its worst abuses. Former Officer Chen has found her own path to redemption. After serving her suspension, she returned to active duty with a new perspective on her responsibilities. Today, she leads the department's Community Outreach Division, creating innovative programs that build bridges between officers and historically marginalized communities. My greatest failure wasn't staying silent that day, Chen admits during a community forum on police accountability. It was staying silent all the days before, when I saw the warning signs but did nothing. Never again. Her candor and obvious commitment to change have earned her the community's tentative trust. More importantly, her example has encouraged other officers to speak up when they witness misconduct, knowing they'll be protected rather than punished. The reforms in Pinewood have inspired a nationwide movement. Police departments in neighboring counties initially mocked the soft approach, predicting crime spikes and officer endangerment. Instead, Pinewood's crime rates have dropped consistently for 3 consecutive years, while officer injuries have decreased by 60%. Turns out, when communities trust their police, they actually help solve crimes, Sheriff Martinez explains to skeptical chiefs from other jurisdictions. And when officers treat citizens with respect, those interactions rarely escalate to violence. Some departments remain resistant, clinging to warrior mentalities and military tactics. But an increasing number recognize the wisdom in Pinewood's approach, particularly as communities of color demand similar reforms in their own cities. The Pinewood model emphasizes de-escalation training, mental health response teams, community advisory boards with real authority, and transparent disciplinary processes for officer misconduct. Each element addresses specific weaknesses that allowed officers like Morris to abuse their power for years without consequences. Most officers want to do the right thing, Michael insists during a national law enforcement conference. But systems that protect bad cops ultimately destroy public trust in all cops. That makes every officer's job more difficult and dangerous. His message resonates even with traditional law enforcement leaders who recognize the profession's existential crisis. Public confidence in policing has reached historic lows, particularly in minority communities where civil rights violations have occurred repeatedly without accountability. In federal prison, Morris watches news coverage of Martinez's rising national profile with bitter resentment. The man whose career he inadvertently launched through his own misconduct now shapes national conversations about policing. Meanwhile, Morris moans daily wash toilets and serves food to other inmates. "I lost everything because of those people," he complains to his therapist during a mandatory counseling session. "No," the therapist corrects gently. "You lost everything because of your choices." Understanding that distinction is the beginning of actual rehabilitation. Morris's journey toward that understanding remains incomplete. Some days he glimpses the truth of his responsibility, other days he retreats into comfortable narratives of victimhood. His progress, like America's reckoning with systemic racism, moves forward in painful fits and starts rather than smooth, continuous improvement. Back in Pinewood, community healing continues through intentional dialogue and meaningful policy changes. The town council now includes representatives from every neighborhood, including those historically excluded from power. Citizens review boards provide oversight of police operations, ensuring transparency and accountability. Elena uses her growing platform to highlight other cases of police misconduct nationwide. Her advocacy organization, Mothers Against Police Brutality, provides legal support and public relations assistance to victims who lack her resources and connections. "What saved me that day wasn't just my husband's position," she often reminds audiences. "It was all those people who recorded what happened, who refused to look away, who understood that staying silent means choosing the side of the oppressor." Her words inspire ordinary citizens to become active participants in justice rather than passive observers of injustice. In cities across America, people now instinctively reach for phones when they witness questionable police conduct, knowing their documentation may make the difference between accountability and impunity. David's second birthday celebration becomes an impromptu community gathering. Neighbors bring gifts and well wishes, celebrating not just the child but what he represents, hope emerging from darkness, future possibilities born from past struggles. "Your son will grow up in a different world because of what you two did," an elderly resident tells the Martinezes during the party. "My grandchildren will know a different relationship with law enforcement because you refuse to accept the status quo." Such moments provide powerful validation for the difficult path they've chosen. Michael could have quietly transferred Morris to desk duty, avoiding public scandal and departmental disruption. Elena could have accepted a private settlement with a confidentiality agreement, prioritizing personal compensation over systemic change. Instead, they chose transparency, accountability, and the harder road of structural reform. Their decision created ripple effects far beyond Pinewood's borders, changing policies and practices in departments they've never visited. The third anniversary of the incident brings national media back to Pinewood. Reporters seek "Where are they now?" updates, expecting to find a community that has moved on from the dramatic events that briefly made it famous. Instead, they discover a town that has embraced those events as a catalyst for ongoing transformation. The incident hasn't been forgotten, it's been integrated into Pinewood's identity as the moment when citizens chose which version of America they wanted to build. "We're not perfect," Mayor Collins acknowledges during interviews. "We still have disagreements about policy. We still struggle with the legacy of historical inequities. But we're having honest conversations now instead of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't." This candor characterizes Pinewood's approach to community relations. Town halls address difficult issues directly rather than avoiding uncomfortable topics. Citizens from all backgrounds participate in decision-making processes that previously excluded them. The result is governance that truly represents the entire community rather than just its most privileged members. Sheriff Martinez continues implementing innovative approaches to public safety. The department's mental health response unit pairs officers with social workers for calls involving psychological crises. The youth engagement program creates positive interactions between teenagers and police before conflicts arise. The Citizen Advisory Board reviews body camera footage monthly, providing feedback on officer conduct and suggesting policy improvements. Each initiative reflects Michael's core philosophy: policing should be done with communities, not to them. This collaborative approach yields measurable results. Violent crime has decreased 38% since reforms began. Officer use of force incidents have dropped 72%. Citizen complaints about police conduct have fallen 64%. The department's racial diversity now reflects the community it serves, with officers fluent in Spanish, Navajo, and Vietnamese. These statistics attract attention from police executives nationwide who are struggling with similar challenges in their own communities. Many visit Pinewood to observe firsthand how abstract principles translate into concrete practices. "The most important change isn't procedural, it's cultural," Michael explains during these consultations. Officers must understand they serve the entire community, not just people who look like them or share their political views. That mental shift changes everything about how they approach their daily interactions. Elena, meanwhile, has become a respected voice in national discussions about police reform. Her perspective as both a victim of misconduct and a law enforcement spouse gives her unique credibility with diverse audiences. When she speaks, both activists and police officials listen. "We can respect the difficulty of policing while still demanding excellence from those who choose this profession," she tells a congressional panel examining potential federal reforms. Accountability isn't anti-police, it's pro-community, which includes the vast majority of officers who serve honorably. Her testimony helps shape legislation that provides federal funding for community policing initiatives while creating stricter oversight for departments with patterns of civil rights violations. The law, eventually passed with bipartisan support, strikes a careful balance between supporting good policing and punishing bad policing. As David approaches preschool age, the Martinezes face decisions about how much of their story to share with their son. They want him to understand the significance of his family's contribution to social justice without burdening him with trauma before he's emotionally equipped to process it. "We'll tell him when he's ready," Elena decides after consultation with child psychologists. "And we'll emphasize the positive outcomes rather than the painful catalyst. He should know people stood up for what's right, that his community protected his mother when she was vulnerable." This framing reflects Elena's own remarkable journey from victim to advocate. She's transformed a traumatic experience into a powerful platform for positive change, refusing to be defined by what was done to her rather than what she's done in response. Morris, meanwhile, nears the end of his prison sentence with uncertain prospects. His former colleagues want nothing to do with him. His professional certification has been permanently revoked. His notoriety makes employment in any public-facing position unlikely. The consequences of his actions will follow him long after he completes his formal punishment. Morris's release from federal prison marks a pivotal moment not just for him but for the entire community. Walking through the prison gates with nothing but a small bag of possessions, he faces a world fundamentally changed by his actions 4 years earlier. The media waits outside, cameras capturing his haggard appearance and haunted eyes. "Mr. Morris, do you have any comments about your release?" a reporter shouts as he walks toward the waiting taxi. For a moment, something flickers across Morris's face, perhaps the instinct to respond with the same arrogance that defined his former life. Instead, he simply lowers his head and continues walking. This small gesture of restraint represents the beginning of a long, difficult journey toward redemption. Back in Pinewood, the Martinez family has expanded with the birth of their daughter, Sophia. 4-year-old David has grown into a precocious, compassionate child who already shows signs of his parents' commitment to justice. The siblings play together in the yard of their modest home, blissfully unaware of the complex legacy that surrounds their family name. "When do we tell them?" Michael asks Elena as they watch their children from the porch. "About what happened before David was born?" Elena considers the question carefully. When they're old enough to understand without being frightened, she decides. "I want them to know the story as a triumph of justice, not a reason to fear authority." This perspective reflects Elena's remarkable evolution from victim to victor. The trauma of that afternoon has transformed into fuel for her advocacy work, which now extends beyond police reform to encompass broader social justice issues. Her organization has established legal defense funds for victims of civil rights violations and created mentorship programs for minority youth interested in law enforcement careers. The best response to injustice isn't just punishing wrongdoers, she often explains in her speaking engagements. It's creating systems where injustice becomes less possible and less tolerated. Sheriff Martinez has become a nationally recognized leader in progressive policing approaches. Departments across the country send officers to train under his supervision, learning the Pinewood model of community engagement, de-escalation tactics, and procedural justice. The results speak for themselves. Crime rates continue dropping while public trust in law enforcement reaches unprecedented levels. "The job hasn't gotten easier," Michael admits during an interview with 60 Minutes. "It's gotten more complex, more nuanced. But it's also become more meaningful. Officers aren't just enforcing laws, they're solving problems, building relationships, preventing crises before they occur." This philosophical shift represents a fundamental reconceptualization of policing itself. Rather than measuring success through arrests and citations, the Pinewood Department evaluates officers based on positive community outcomes, reduced recidivism, increased voluntary cooperation, improved quality of life in previously underserved neighborhoods. Officer Chen, now promoted to captain, oversees the department's innovative crisis intervention team, which pairs specially trained officers with mental health professionals. The program has reduced use of force incidents by 85% while connecting vulnerable community members with appropriate services rather than cycling them through jails and emergency rooms. "We used to respond to mental health crises with handcuffs," Chen explains during a training session for visiting officers. "Now we respond with compassion, clinical expertise, and connections to ongoing care. The results aren't just more humane, they're more effective." Such fundamental changes didn't come easily. Old guard officers resigned rather than adapt to new expectations. Police unions initially resisted accountability measures. Conservative politicians warned that soft approaches would embolden criminals and endanger officers. Yet year after year, the data validates the Martinez approach: fewer complaints, fewer injuries, fewer crimes, and greater community satisfaction. On a warm spring afternoon, Elena receives an unexpected phone call that tests her commitment to the restorative justice principles she advocates. The caller identifies himself as Ryan Morris's probation officer, explaining that the former police officer has requested a meeting with her as part of his rehabilitation process. He's completed anger management and racial sensitivity programs, the officer explains. His therapist believes facing you directly would be an important step in his recovery. "Of course, this is entirely your decision." Elena's immediate reaction is visceral rejection. Why should she provide closure to the man who humiliated her, endangered her unborn child, and showed no remorse during his trial. She doesn't owe Morris anything, certainly not the comfort of forgiveness. I'll need to think about it, she tells the probation officer, her voice carefully neutral. And discuss it with my husband. That evening, after the children are asleep, Elena and Michael sit on their back porch discussing the unexpected request. Crickets chirp in the warm darkness as they weigh the potential benefits and risks of such an encounter. You don't have to do this, Michael reassures her, his hand covering hers. You've already done more than anyone could reasonably expect to create positive change from that situation. I know, Elena nods, watching fireflies blink in their garden. But I'm curious about who he's become. If he's genuinely changed or just going through required motions. After careful consideration and consultation with her therapist, Elena agrees to the meeting with specific conditions, a neutral location, security present, and the right to end the conversation at any time. The encounter is scheduled for the following week at a community center conference room. Morris arrives 15 minutes early, dressed in a simple button-down shirt and slacks that hang loosely on his thinner frame. Prison has aged him visibly, his hair grayer, his posture less imposing, his eyes carrying the weight of prolonged isolation and social disgrace. He stands nervously when Elena enters, accompanied by her attorney and a security officer. Mrs. Martinez, he begins, his voice lacking its former authoritative edge. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Elena takes the seat across from him, her posture straight and dignified. I'm here to listen, Mr. Morris. What follows is a genuine, if imperfect, attempt at accountability. Morris describes his journey from denial to grudging admission to genuine remorse. He explains how losing everything, career, marriage, home, respect, created space for painful self-examination. I believed I was one of the good guys, he confesses, eyes fixed on the table between them. That belief made it impossible to see how my actions hurt people who didn't look like me. It took losing everything to finally see myself clearly. Elena listens without interruption, her expression revealing nothing. When Morris finally looks up, he finds not the hatred or triumph he expected, but something more complex, a measured assessment untainted by either vengeance or unearned absolution. Do you understand, she asks after a long silence, that this isn't just about you and me? That what happened that day was part of something much larger and older. Morris nods slowly. I've been studying American history, particularly regarding law enforcement and race. Things I should have learned decades ago. I understand now that I was continuing patterns that began long before I was born. And how does that make you feel? Elena presses. Ashamed, he answers simply. And responsible for breaking those patterns rather than perpetuating them. The conversation continues for nearly 2 hours, touching on difficult truths about power, privilege, and accountability. Elena doesn't offer the easy forgiveness Morris might have hoped for, but something potentially more valuable, honest feedback about the harm he caused and the work still needed for genuine redemption. Your apology doesn't erase what happened, she tells him as the meeting concludes. But what you do with the rest of your life might give it meaning. That's your choice now. As they prepare to leave, Morris asks a final question that reveals the distance he's traveled. The programs your organization runs for police departments, do you ever use former officers as speakers? To share what they've learned from their mistakes? Elena studies him thoughtfully. We might. After you've demonstrated consistent commitment to change through actions, not just words. This conditional opportunity, neither promised redemption nor permanent exile, represents the delicate balance between accountability and second chances that defines true justice. Morris leaves the meeting with something he hasn't felt in years, not absolution, but possibility. News of the meeting spreads quickly through Pinewood's interconnected community. Reactions range from support for Elena's extraordinary grace to concern that engaging with Morris minimizes the severity of his actions. The controversy sparks renewed conversations about forgiveness, redemption, and the purpose of punishment in a just society. Elena addresses these concerns directly in a community forum organized by local faith leaders. Meeting with Mr. Morris wasn't about forgiveness, she explains to the packed audience. It was about bearing witness to the consequences of his actions and challenging him to channel his remorse into meaningful change. Her nuanced approach resonates with community members grappling with their own complex feelings about justice and healing. Rather than imposing a single correct response, Elena creates space for multiple perspectives while maintaining clear expectations about accountability. This capacity for holding complexity without seeking simple solutions has become the hallmark of Pinewood's approach to community healing. Rather than pretending deep-rooted problems can be solved quickly or painlessly, the town embraces the messy, ongoing work of transforming systems built on historical inequities. 5 years after the incident that transformed their lives, the Martinez family stands at the center of a community profoundly changed by their leadership. What began as a traumatic encounter has catalyzed reforms that reach far beyond policing to address housing, education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. Real justice isn't just about what happens in courtrooms, Michael explains during a TED Talk that will eventually be viewed millions of times. It's about creating communities where every person is valued, protected, and empowered to reach their full potential. This expansive vision guides his approach as he transitions from sheriff to candidate for state senate. David, now in kindergarten, and Sophia, a curious toddler, accompany their parents to campaign events, embodying the future their parents are working to create. David has inherited his mother's quiet determination and his father's natural leadership, already organizing playground cleanups with his classmates. Sophia shows early signs of the family's commitment to speaking truth, her favorite word being a decisive no, when she encounters anything unjust, even if that's just her brother claiming the larger cookie. On the anniversary of the water assault incident, Pinewood holds its annual Justice Festival, a community celebration that transforms painful history into constructive action. Streets close to traffic as neighbors share food, music, and conversation about the ongoing work of creating a more perfect union. Representatives from dozens of police departments nationwide attend workshops on community policing while local organizations showcase their contributions to social justice initiatives. Morris, having completed his probation requirements with genuine commitment, attends the festival not as a featured speaker but as an ordinary citizen seeking to contribute positively to a community he once harmed. He volunteers at the setup crew, quietly arranging chairs and tables before most attendees arrive. Elena spots him working and approaches with a bottle of water, a simple gesture that acknowledges both their history and the possibility of a different future. Morris accepts with quiet gratitude, recognizing the symbolic significance of receiving water rather than having it weaponized against him. "How are you doing?" Elena asks without pretense. Taking it day by day, Morris responds honestly. "Working with at-risk youth, sharing my story as a warning. Trying to earn back some measure of respect." Elena nods, acknowledging his efforts without either dismissing or overvaluing them. "Keep doing the work," she says simply before rejoining her family. This brief exchange, witnessed by several community members, becomes yet another teaching moment in Pinewood's ongoing journey, a demonstration that reconciliation doesn't require forgetting history or forgiving prematurely, but rather creating space for transformed relationships through concrete actions and demonstrated change. As evening falls, the festival culminates with a candlelight vigil honoring victims of civil rights violations nationwide. Thousands of flames illuminate the town square as Sheriff Martinez addresses the gathered community. 5 years ago, a terrible act of cruelty occurred in this very spot, he begins, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. We could have responded with more hatred, more division, more fear. Instead, this community chose a different path, one of accountability, healing, and transformation. Elena joins him at the podium, their children standing between them. "What happened here wasn't just my story," she adds. "It became our story, a catalyst for creating the community we all deserved but didn't yet have." The crowd responds with sustained applause, acknowledging the truth in her words. What began as one woman's traumatic experience has evolved into a communal narrative of resilience and positive change. As the ceremony concludes, a surprise speaker approaches the microphone. Officer Chen, now a nationally recognized advocate for police reform, addresses the community she once feared speaking up for. 5 years ago, I failed a pregnant woman who needed my protection, she admits candidly. I chose career safety over moral courage, and I've spent every day since working to ensure no officer makes that same mistake. The badge doesn't give us power over communities, it gives us responsibility to them. Her honesty earns respectful silence followed by supportive applause, demonstrating Pinewood's commitment to accountability without permanent condemnation. People can acknowledge past failures while being recognized for genuine growth, a balance that enables true community healing. The next morning, as the Martinez family enjoys breakfast before school and campaign events, they receive news that Michael's police reform bill has passed the state legislature with bipartisan support. The Elena Martinez Public Safety Act establishes civilian oversight boards, mental health response teams, and accountability measures for departments statewide. "We did it, love," Michael says, embracing his wife as the children cheer without fully understanding the significance. Elena smiles, thinking of the journey from victim to namesake of landmark legislation. "We're just getting started," she responds, her eyes already focused on the work ahead. In the years that follow, their story continues inspiring communities nationwide to examine their own relationships with law enforcement and commit to necessary reforms. The Pinewood model becomes standard curriculum in police academies across the country, gradually transforming the culture of American policing from warrior mentality to guardian philosophy. Morris finds purpose in speaking to police recruits about the dangers of unchecked authority and implicit bias, his personal testimony providing powerful reinforcement for academic training. While never regaining the status or power he once held, he discovers more meaningful satisfaction in contributing to positive change than he ever found in dominating others. Officer Chen eventually becomes Police Chief Chen, implementing innovative approaches to community safety that balance effective crime prevention with scrupulous protection of civil rights. Her department becomes a training ground for the next generation of officers committed to constitutional policing and community partnership. The Martinez children grow up understanding their family's legacy not as a burden but as inspiration. David eventually follows his father into public service, while Sophia becomes a civil rights attorney, each continuing the work of justice in their own way. And Elena, the pregnant woman once humiliated on scorching pavement, receives the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her transformative advocacy work. Standing in the White House East Room, surrounded by family and supporters, she reflects on the journey from victim to national leader. True power isn't the ability to control others, she tells the assembled dignitaries and millions watching via broadcast. It's the courage to stand for what's right, especially when doing so comes at personal cost. It's the wisdom to transform pain into purpose. And it's the faith that justice, while never perfect and never finished, remains always worth fighting for. As the audience rises in standing ovation, cameras capture 4-year-old Sophia Martinez's spontaneous response. The little girl pours water from her cup into a potted plant beside her chair, symbolically transforming what was once a weapon of humiliation into an act of nurturing life. This unscripted moment becomes an enduring image of hope, suggesting that even our darkest experiences can ultimately water the seeds of a more just future. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.